Welcome, everyone, to 101 Questions that Church Planters Ask. I'm your host, Danny Parmalee, and for some of you, it's welcome for the first time. Some of you, it's welcome back. We are relaunching this podcast after a good hiatus, good amount of time, and a major change in it is that we have added a host, Chris Highfill. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, what's up? Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Danny. Man, I've been waiting for this invite for a long time, so this is like, gosh, amazing.
I know you've basically been kind of, begging to be part of this, and I finally relented. And so, okay, fine, Chris.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true at all, but we are super glad to have you. We're going to actually, the whole point of this kind of relaunch podcast is for those that don't know you. I'll recap just a little bit about myself as well. We're going to talk just kind of briefly a bit about what we're going to cover. What we hope to cover. We call it 101 questions that church planners ask. I think our list is at like 140 right now. We have an Excel document, and we're kind of just working through that. And a lot of these are questions that church planners ask you and I both over and over again. And that was kind of actually even the beginning of the idea of it, of the podcast. Say, man, I'm answering the same question over and over again. So hey, why don't we just record some of these, and that way we can point people in that direction. So why don't we kind of kick things off?
To less people that way too, so it's good.
Yes, it's less work. This is basically us being lazy type of situation. But why don't we
listen to our
kick
podcast?
It off?
We'll answer the question.
Yeah, we'll start off. Chris, tell us just a little bit of yourself, your family, a little bit about your church, and then also even the role that you have as far as coaching and training church planters.
Yeah, well, my name's Chris Highfill. I'm lead pastor at Grace River Church right outside of St. Louis, about 20 minutes from downtown. And we started Grace River 10 years ago. My wife and I, we've been married for 20 years. We have 3 kids, Ella, Jack, and Allie. They're 14, 16, and 18 years old. So we basically have like a student ministry at our house. It's pretty awesome. I was a youth pastor before I was a planter. I always joke with Danny that youth pastors make the best church planters. The joke there is Danny wasn't ever a youth pastor. He just jumped right into church planting.
Well, I was for an internship, and I was horrible at it. So, just for accuracy's sake. So intern.
Sure. Yeah. I actually wasn't a very good youth pastor either, but I just stuck with it for a long time. And so 13 years in youth ministry, and then really felt like, man, one of these days I'm going to pastor adults. What's that going to look like? And I really am the most least likely guy you'd ever meet to be a pastor. So we were kind of trying to figure out okay, how am I going to be a lead pastor of a church? And I really wanted to be a part of a church that was reaching people that were really far from God. And I'd always read about it, and I'd heard about it. I'd heard about churches that were reaching people that other churches weren't reaching. And so I was beginning to do research on it and began praying through it. I've come to find out, man, the best way to reach the people that nobody else is reaching is to start a brand new church. Especially in your 30s, early 30s, that was my only option. It was okay, I could take a dead or dying church and turn it around, and spend the next 10 years of my life doing that, or we could start something from scratch. Obviously, both have some pretty significant pain points, and both require a different set of skills. And so we're really glad that we went this route. We planted Grace River, and it's been a lot of fun. We were portable for 5 years, and then we moved into the first permanent facility 4 years ago. And it's been unbelievable having a building. It's really changed a ton of things. We say it a lot, though. The building is not... the church is not a building that you drive to. It's a movement that you choose to be a part of, a movement that's helping people meet, know, and follow Jesus. So it's never been about a building, but man, location sure did help. And I think we're going to talk about that in the episode to come, the importance of a good location.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that because specifically for you were was YMCA your first, or were you at a school first and then the YMCA?
Yeah, we were at an elementary school first for 1 year in an elementary school, and then 4 years in a YMCA. I forgot to mention, too, I'm the regional director of church planting, so I actually work in partnership with Danny, and so we help new churches get started. Love doing that, and we love helping accomplish the dream that God has put in people's hearts.
Yep. And so your full-time job, lead pastor, church planter, lead pastor, but also with that, yeah, helping out with Converge. And we say there's kind of no such thing as a part-time job because you actually do a phenomenal, your regional area, essentially, Converge Mid-America, Southeast Caribbean stretches, from northern Michigan down to the tips of Florida. And you do a few things in the Caribbean now and then, not too much with church planting, but, just to be with our pastors down there. So give us a little context of Grace River as far as, you started, just a handful of you, went to multiple services, how many services you're at now. And, I know it's not all just about numbers, but just contextual size of stuff that, growth that you guys have kind of gone through at each of those stages, especially going from elementary to YMCA and then YMCA to the building that you're in now.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started with 4 people in my living room. We parachuted into a brand new community 10 years ago. We didn't know anybody here. And so that was a big step of faith. And I told my wife, I give this about an 80% shot at working, but to be honest with you, I never said it out loud to her in those early days, but it was more like a 50-50 shot, like I had no idea what I'm doing whenever we got started. And so we start in my living room with 4 people, and then we grew our launch team to around 100 people. We started in the elementary school that my kids went to, and so we had a great relational connection. It was awesome. In the community we lived in. It was fairly centralized in the community, so it was a great elementary school. Actually had more parking than most elementary schools have, so that was super helpful. We grew to around 150 at that elementary school, and then we quickly began to run out of space. The opportunity became available for us to meet at the YMCA, and so we went there, and we were in the Y for less than a year, and then went to 2 services, and then soon after that really took off as a church. We were averaging over 300, and we realized, man, we really need our own facility, and so with the help of Converge, we did a capital campaign, and it was super helpful. With 50 families, we raised over $500,000 to get the building that we're in today. And the building we're in today is kind of a miracle because I told our church back when we did the campaign, man, we don't have a piece of property to point at or an architectural design. Like we don't have any of that. We're just saying, hey, buy into the vision, buy into the dream of what we have going on. And it was amazing that they did that. And then I told them, I really feel like God's going to meet us in the middle. Like we're going to take this step of faith and let's see what God will do. And that weekend, the building that I'm sitting in right now dropped $400,000 in price. It went from 2.1 million to 1.7 million. And then we also found out the building has a built-in tenant, and the tenant pays $10,000 a month. If you do the math on a $1.7 million loan, it's $10,000 a month. So their rent paid our mortgage. They were here for 4 years, and we were basically mortgage free as a result of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. But good news is you had to boot them out because of growth, so that you could expand and continue. So, and you guys just finished it, or you're close to finishing that expansion and renovation.
Yeah, we're halfway through. So really, I guess we're 30% through because there's 3 phases of this renovation, but we just finished the part of the renovation that the clinic used to take up. A clinic was in here that took the tenant space. And so there were 6,000 square feet that we freed up, and we built, we were able to double our kids ministry square footage. And so that's pretty amazing. And now we're doing lobby and auditorium renovations, and then we're going to add 100 more parking spots. So all pretty crazy what God will do. And really it starts with a yes, like just, I said yes to God, and I was able to get some really good coaching, some really great training. You'll find out in this podcast, I'm not all that smart. I just have really been able to get some great coaching and some great training from people. And what I love doing is sharing some of the dumb taxes that I had to pay by just making bad decisions. And so now one of the perks of listening to this podcast is we can help give you some of the cheat codes on how you can avoid some of those mistakes that we made in the early days, right? And Danny, for you, I mean, you planted Epicos Church in Milwaukee. Tell us a little bit about that church for those of you that don't know your backstory And man, you're kind of like a celebrity too. So I don't know. We'll just ease into it.
Yeah, well, I will give the extremely short version of that. But my wife and I, right after we got married, I went to seminary at Bethel Seminary in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And in 2004, we moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We also did kind of the parachute thing. We didn't, we weren't hive off of another church, and it wasn't our hometown. And so it was basically just gathering a few interested people, meeting in our living room. We ended up, it wasn't intentional. I wasn't coached this way as a model, but we did kind of small group multiplication in the beginning before we ever launched, but we ended up launching in 2005. I was 25 years old. So our entire launch team was college students, singles, young professionals, and young marrieds with no kids. So we were a very, very young church. Our first year's annual offering was $11,000. That was annual. And year two was, I think it was like $36,000. So we didn't have any money at all, but God did some cool stuff and continued to kind of grow our church. We were using an old Presbyterian church, and we were meeting on Saturday nights, which that was brutal. That was horrible. Eventually switched to Sunday nights. Which I'll share this story in more depth later, but eventually we bought that building. That was very important, kind of key moment for us because it allowed us to have Sunday morning services and Sunday evening services. And over time we stayed involved in church planting, and eventually we did campusing as well. And so that's part of my story that I love to be able to share, because sometimes people are 100% only church planting or only campusing. And for us, we really did both and really learned a lot through that. So.
Now, was that 3 or 4 campuses? How many were that?
So three campuses that we had total. Our main campus, which was downtown near the university, and then we had one in West Dallas, which was a kind of a not a suburb is maybe not the best way to describe it, but as close as you can be to kind of the city, but being outside of the city. And then later we launched another one on the north side of the city, which was in a very, very different, even cultural. I mean, it was, I think, 95% African-American, high poverty rate. But yeah, we kind of fell backwards into becoming a multi-ethnic, multicultural church, was very, very cool. And so we just continued down that path. So.
Yeah, and then afterwards, you took a position with Converge as vice president of church planting. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, 2017. So in 2017, made the transition. Difficult thing. I talk about it all the time, that as a church planter, we say, work yourself out of a job. And that's what I would train all of our people in 2017. I'm like, oh my goodness, we've got 3 strong campuses, really great staff, great leadership. I think I've worked myself out of a job. And so, moved to Nashville, Tennessee. That's where I am now. And started this role so that I dedicated 100% of my time. And I had been working with our network of churches, being involved in church planting, but I just made that switch to make that full time, and kind of basically essentially set up the leadership of Epicos to hire that next pastor. Now they've gone through some difficult times and pastor transition, so that is super hard to watch from afar. Type of thing. And they made some strides and added another campus, but then shut a campus down. And so that's kind of a difficult thing to kind of watch from afar for it. But so now that's my full-time role with some change coming.
Yeah. Big changes coming too, which is great. Yeah. So we'll be able to announce that real soon. And so exciting stuff there as well. And man, you've been busy with a lot of different projects. And you were at like 3 podcasts at one time, one with like Ed Stetzer, right?
Yeah. So people ask, wait, a relaunch of the podcast. Well, what happened before? It's actually pretty easy. Is that podcasting is great and fun, but man, is it a ton of work. And so 2 of the podcasts that I did, one with Converge National, and then the one that I did, it required a bit more of the production and programming on my end. The one that was done with Lifeway with Ed, they did a majority of the production. So that was really great. And of course, that was fun being with Ed. And I set up a lot of the different guest interviews. And so that was really easy to do because all I had to do was drop Ed's name and people would be like, oh yeah, of course. I've got 20 to 30 minutes that I can, give some time.
Sure.
However, with all of those, man, it just became so much. So we had our list of all of these different, questions to go through, and there just wasn't enough time. And so we took a little pause there. But I'm super excited, and sincerely, Chris, I'm really excited that you're doing this with me. I think that you have so much to offer. I've done tons of trainings with you, and just not only your personal story, but I know you've just worked with so many different churches. And so you bring an element to this that I think is just going to be really fantastic. And we're going to continue to invite other guests and to hear from others, just kind of their experience, or if they're an expert in that area. So we'll be able to do that. But yeah, I'm super jazzed to see what this next run is. I don't know if we'll get all 101 and how quickly we'll be able to do that, but as many as we can. We definitely want to be answering these questions and to kind of cut through the crap. One thing that is awesome about this go around is that we've got some sponsorship, and we have Champion Digital Media who's doing the post-production for us. So that takes a huge load off for them to be able to help with that. And then outreach.com as sponsors. We're really excited. And each time we'll talk about what that means and how that is a benefit to you as the listeners, because even as they're sponsoring us for the listeners, you have an opportunity to get, I think it's like $1,500 or $1,600 worth of free stuff and signage and marketing to kind of, as a brand new church plant, to get off the ground really, really strong. So lots of good things ahead. Super, super excited to see what God will do in this next season of the podcast. Well, that's a wrap for our relaunch of 101 Questions That Church Planters Ask. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions, you can go to churchplantersask.com and you can leave a question there. Or if you're watching this on one of the social media platforms, you can drop your question directly in the comments. And we would love to be able to help you on your journey. And so until next time, keep asking those questions.